Cutting Edge is a great name for a talk show.
Thank you.
What is Cutting Edge?
We're a new web news organization.
Oh.
So next year when we do late night with Robert Dornan, we're going to do a late night thing. You can get us on the web live with that stuff. Is there such a thing?
We don't do that uplink right now.
Okay.
But we
That
could.
would lead to follow on doing it for radio.
Yeah, well, definitely. Bob Dornan is a member of the Cutting Edge team, so.
Whatever happened to Bob Dornan's brother?
Don't know about that.
Don.
Don
Don
Dornan,
Dornan,
the photographer for Life magazine.
Yeah, he was the photographer for Barry Goldwater on that '64 campaign too. That's
Well, he was one of them, definitely.
Yeah,
He was a friend of mine.
yeah. No, he flew the plane. No, didn't fly the plane. He flew on the plane. Is he still alive and around?
I don't know. You know, Don was ate a lot. He was
Yeah,
and
fat too.
yeah, that's what I'm talking about. So he stayed heavy for a long period of time. Save one because I'm looking to write out one while I'm talking to him.
Just get the two down that way. Oops.
So, Lynn, how did Richard cajole you to be the keynote speaker for the Western Conservative Conference?
He called me and asked me.
And you responded immediately.
Yeah, didn't I?
He did. A year and a month, or a year and 2 months ago, we asked him for last year's conference, and I think he had something else in the schedule, and so I immediately went back and said, well, how about next year? And we know the date for next year, too, by the way, right now, so
That's
we'll
good.
make next year's plan ahead.
So, Lynn, what do you think of President Bush at this moment in time? How's he doing?
Where did that? There we are.
Are we on?
We're live.
I'm live. I think he's a great president.
Now you can tell the truth.
You wanted one.
Well, I
Well,
guess.
you know, no president is perfect, and no president, including Ronald Reagan, ever did everything I thought they should do, and they all have done things I thought they shouldn't do. But, you know, I keep reminding myself that we could have had Al Gore, and I keep reminding myself that he has done things like get us out of that International Criminal Court,
That's a good
and
deal.
some other things. He could be doing a lot worse.
What's the real inside story? Do you believe that Dick Cheney is really the president? And
No, I do not. I think anybody who understands how the government works knows that that's a lot of crap. There's only one guy who has any authority in the executive office, and that's the president. And the vice president does what the president tells him to do. And if the president wants to listen to Dick Cheney, that's fine. Get advice from him, that's fine. But to say that Dick Cheney is making decisions is just nonsense.
one of the things that we want to know is, 9/11 changed a lot of the playing field dramatically from possible other visions of what the history would be. Tell us, if you can, what effect do you think 9/11 had on the conservative movement?
I don't know. I think it's too early to tell. I think we have to wait and see a little farther down the road what the final actions of this country are and this president. I think if anything, 9/11 certainly helped the popularity of the president, and if any of that popularity rubs off on Republicans, then it helps Republicans as opposed to helping just conservatives.
Well, let's ask about this Homeland Security situation. What do you think of Governor Ridge and what he's doing to combine all of the efforts of the government for Homeland Security?
Well, I don't know Governor Ridge. I think he's had an impossible job because I think he's had a job without any authority that has been given to him by law. He's been given to him by the president, but he's had no budget. You know, I don't know whether anybody could have done a really good job under that situation. What will happen when we get this new Homeland Security Department? I don't know, and I don't know because I don't know what it's going to come out like, because we know what the president asked, but we don't know what the Congress is going to do.
Well, let's talk about something you do know something a great deal about, and that's what our Governor or rather Senator Ashcroft, and now Attorney General Ashcroft is taking over, and as you know, as you said, they passed the Patriot Act and so on, and basically, what does that really mean to Americans in the long term? Have we really lost a lot of our individual liberties, or are we going to get them back someday?
I don't know. If you've done any flying recently, you'll see that you've lost some of your individual liberties. And I think that the liberties that we lose because of 9/11, I don't see us ever getting them back. The thing that I think we always have to worry about is how far the American people are going to let the government go in taking their liberties away from them. And you know, we'll have to wait and see. I'm not a prophet. I can't predict what's going to happen.
We need to wrap up and let him move on.
All right, well, let me one last question, if you will, and that's, of course, we're at a conservative Western Conference, and we couldn't leave this conversation without talking about firearms, and especially California firearms laws are become quite invasive over this year. At the national level, we're talking about pilots having firearms aboard planes and so on, which would be positive in some people's eyes and not so much in others. What's your read on firearms ownership in the United States right now?
Well, you know, of course, you have the anti-gun people out there always working, but I think that I think that there's a lot of movement in this country to give people guns. You can see more and more states are voting concealed carry laws and so forth. So I'm not. I'm always concerned because people want to take away our liberties, and that includes the right to bear arms. But I don't see any sign that they're going to succeed on a national level in taking away our guns. We're not going to wind up like, say, the English have.
Jim Knopfler, thank you so much for joining us on Cutting Edge. United States Justice Foundation, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Well, tell us about that. Tell us about your organization, what you do.
Well, the United States Justice Foundation is a public interest legal action foundation from a conservative Christian perspective. We were founded in 1979 by a group of attorneys who were concerned about the success of liberal legal groups like the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, MALDA, and the ACLU in challenging laws on a regular basis and overturning the will of people. Prop 187 is a good example from California, Prop 209, the attempt to overturn that, Proposition 13. All these legal groups are constantly trying to overturn initiatives of the people or laws passed to protect the people. So we founded this group back in 1979, originally with 3 attorneys.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you actually help create some of these initiatives that go on the ballots?
We have helped draft some laws that are actually been enacted, especially in the education area. We have done critiques of numerous laws, both on the federal and state level, where we thought that the laws were unconstitutional or had unconstitutional vestiges or would cause problems with constitutional rights in individuals. We have also been involved somewhat peripherally in the initiative process. I was quoted extensively in one initiative as to its constitutionality in the argument that was put out in the voters pamphlet that was distributed statewide for statewide.
Which one was that, Gary?
You would have to ask that.
Just wanted to know.
I could find that out for you, but to be quite honest, I don't remember off the top of my head.
Well, what brings you here to the 3rd Western Conservative Conference?
Well, we've been a sponsor of these last 3 years, Western Conservative Conferences. We're a primary sponsor. We were a co-sponsor of the first Western Conservative Conference about 10 years ago, and then, of course, of these 3 that have gone on the last 3 years. Since 1979, we've been a sponsor every year of the National Conservative Political Action Conference back in Washington, D.C., and now in Northern Virginia. And we are involved heavily in litigation from a conservative and Christian viewpoint, and especially involving matters concerning California citizens. For instance, we're the group that's filed the lawsuit challenging the $43 billion in long-term energy contracts that Governor Davis signed last year. Those contracts require California taxpayers and ratepayers, because there's going to be a tax levy put against all of us to pay for this, to pay for energy prices at between 5 and 10 times the going current rate. In other words, the contracts require us to pay up to $160 per megawatt hour, where current spot prices are $15 to $30 per megawatt hour, and we are challenging that in court.
So let's place a little blame, Gary. You're right involved in this whole energy crisis in California. Who's really at fault? Gray Davis, the energy companies, big money, the oil companies?
Well, the energy companies were being greedy. But the problem is that Gray Davis was being stupid.
Gary Creek, thanks so much for joining us on The Cutting Edge. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Bill Back, you're visiting the 3rd Annual Western Conservative Conference. First of all, tell us who you are.
I'm Vice Chairman of the California Republican Party, a resident of Northern California in Yuba County.
And what brings you here to the conference this year?
I wanted to get the benefit of the latest philosophical thinking by leading conservative thinkers.
And who do you put in that category? Give me a couple of leading conservative thinkers.
John Stews. I would put Mike Spence in that category. I would put Creep in that category. Lou Uhler is just a great thinker.
Now, have you been to, there's been 3 of these conferences so far. Have you been to all 3?
Nope, this is my first one.
All right. Were you invited to the other 2?
Quite frankly, I don't remember. I may have been or may not.
Well, let's talk a minute about the conservative movement in America right now based on the events of 9/11. Do you think that's overall has changed a lot of what we're doing as a conservative country and the conservative philosophy?
Yes, I think it made some dramatic changes in the values and priorities of our citizens as a whole, as well as a number of our political and governmental leaders. I think it has revitalized the sense of patriotism and the identification and pride in our country. I think it's also made it very clear to people that this is in fact a dangerous world that we live in, and that we have to conduct our affairs with that as a premise.
Well, let me ask you this. Those are all things that are probably pretty well a concession laid down in the conservative thought process. But one of the things that isn't is the fact that the intervention of government into our lives and the necessities of war and what that does to us as a country to invasively go into each one of American backgrounds and so on. So how does that, what's been the net effect as far, you've been here at the conference now for both days. Tell us what you feel people are saying about government intervention into their lives.
Well, I think clearly there are people here who have a concern with the level of government intrusion into the private lives of the citizens, given the actions after 9/11. I think that, as with all things, that there will have to be a consideration of a proper balance. There are things that need to be done